welcome everyone to the Summer Outlook panel discussion. My name is Brad Nelson. I am a meteorologist and solution engineer at DTN, and you've already been introduced to Stephen, who gave us the terrific summer outlook for Europe and the UK. And we also have Arjen Piest, who is our aviation product manager at DTN. The main focus of the panel discussion here today, we're going to take about 15 minutes and talk through impacts on airport operations in particular, and outdoor events and festivals based on the information that Stephen has provided. So with that, Stephen, you brought up in the presentation that we're looking at, some higher confidence in a wet, potentially stormy summer across Southern Europe and especially Southeast Europe, and this wet weather shifting to Northwest Europe with potential for active storms, including the UK by late summer in particular into August. We've already seen this occurring with some heavy rains, really devastating recent heavy rains in May across portions of northern Italy. So with this forecast, it really can be inferred, I would say, that there's an increased risk of thunderstorms with lightning, heavy rainfall, and gusty winds. Can you take a minute and just explain that forecast and your confidence in these kind of heavy rainfall events continuing in certain areas into the summer?
Yeah, sure. Well, we've seen this blocked pattern through June. High pressure at more northern latitudes that's been giving this dry weather across the northern half of Europe, which has driven low pressure systems further south than normal, across to the Mediterranean, particularly Spain, Portugal, and up there into the Alps. We've seen that flooding in Italy. It's taken a while for that to shift, so we'll see a continuation of that pattern into June for a while before it starts to break down, or mid-month for a while, and then more especially later in the month. And you mentioned thunderstorms and lightning risks. There's not a reliable way, particularly of predicting at seasonal ranges, whether or not there'll be more of these outbreaks than usual. Maybe it's obvious to say during summer months, especially with the warmth we're expecting, any unsettled conditions come with a relatively high risk of thunderstorms, but seasonal range is tough to pin down the other ingredients, such as the instability in the atmosphere. There's been a study that suggests actually a greater risks during La Nina than El Nino, but it's highly uncertain, and that's was really taking more into account the influence at southerly latitudes south of about 35 north, so isn't really so relevant as we head into northern Europe. But it's a fair assumption, I think, that the greater amount and frequency of rain is going to mean greater thunderstorm chances, naturally. So for the rest of June and July, we're looking at more lightning threats across the southern half of Europe, localized torrential downpours with enhanced flood risks. Then for the more northern parts of Europe, the risk increases through the summer. August, as we saw, is looking wettest, especially in the northwest and Western Europe. But our analogs are showing elevated jet stream winds by then, along with above average moisture throughout the atmosphere. So that's conducive to thunderstorm activity. But even in July, there could be growing chances of troughs moving northwards into northern Europe, bringing occasional strong convective outbreaks and hit and miss clusters of strong thunderstorms.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it kind of depends, like you said, how long these kind of blocking patterns stick around, and if we get in a more zonal pattern, which would negate some of the heavier rainfall sticking around in certain areas for longer periods of time. So with that, and as the busy holiday season comes around, there's a lot more people traveling to some of the major southern airports around the Mediterranean through the summer months. Arjen, next question for you is, what operational challenges do these airports have in preparing for adverse weather during their busy season, especially knowing that there may be an increased risk of rain and thunderstorm activity over the upcoming months?
Yeah, thank you very much, Brad, and thank you, Stephen, for that excellent outlook. Yeah, of course, if we look at the summer period in Europe, and we hear that, or we see in the model predictions that we anticipate more precipitation, especially in the south part of Europe, you're immediately thinking of more thunderstorm activity indeed. And with thunderstorm activity for airport operations and airline operations, I mean, yeah, lightning is of course one of the major issues. Um, for example, aircraft handling will stop when they have thunderstorms overhead of the airport, which means that you probably can land your aircraft if the storm is not too close, but you will not get the passengers on and off the aircraft and the bags out of the aircraft. You can't refuel the aircraft, so that that adds all up. And you already mentioned that we're in June. We're already seeing a ramp up in travel from especially Northern Europe, Western Europe, towards the Mediterranean. It's the start of the holiday season, and especially now in this time of June, where we anticipate more precipitation in the more like the southwest part of southern Europe, so Spain, the Balearic Islands, and I'm like straight away thinking of airports like Barcelona, Palma de Mallorca, who are already pretty congested, and they already have challenges in the number of traffic. Good thunderstorm clusters will can have like a big impact on their operations. Aircraft will have to hold, they have to deviate, passengers stuck in the terminal. So that's something that airports and airlines should really prepare for. Airports should have to check if their adverse weather plans are dusted off, if their the lightning detection systems are operating, make sure that everybody stays safe, that the procedures are in order for to secure ground surface equipment. That usually thunderstorms often go accompanied with severe wind gusts. All that kind of things going on. So yeah, it has a big impact, and of course airlines should be aware of this and make sure that when they create their flight plans towards that part of Europe, that they might take a little bit extra contingency view to be able to hold for a little bit longer than normal, or to deviate to an alternative airport. Yeah, it's unfortunately this type of weather usually has a big effect, and if that happens at a certain part of the day, you tend to have that snowball effect throughout the rest of the day and throughout the rest of the network. Those aircraft, that flight crew is not at the position where they should be, and that affects other airport operations. So that's how we see, especially in the summertime in Europe, when there's a lot of traffic going on towards the Mediterranean area. Yeah, that you have like a snowball effect in the European transport network for aviation.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for running through those challenges. A few things that you called out that I don't think many people actually think of. There's a lot of moving parts, right?
Yeah,
When it comes to this type of weather and how to prepare and mitigate for
yeah.
it. But
I mean,
second question I have is like, how can professional weather solutions, tools, um, everything you have to help manage these impacts to airport operations and other businesses? What is out there, including with ETN, in ways that we can help?
well, one part of that is, of course, knowing when to expect that impact. So, weather is one of the things in life that we cannot avoid, but we can prepare for impact of that. So we got really good tools like Aviation Century Online, Weather Century Online, that can help you prepare for that. Make sure that you know when that adverse weather is coming, how severe that adverse weather is, how long does it take, and of course we have like yourself and our risk communicators that can take you along those events and make sure that you know when it comes and where it stops and when you can start your operations again.
Yeah, it's I like the segue that you have regarding our risk communicator team and our professional meteorologists that assist airport operations year round, not only during the summer months, but during those high impact, snow and ice events during the
Yep.
winter as well. Um, so with that, I do want to kind of talk about some in the outdoor event space, the large outdoor events, the festivals that are going on, all summer long across Europe and the UK, we're looking at an active stormy season in certain areas, that could really lead to some big problems. There's a lot more accountability now, a lot more pressure for event and festival organizers to take this into account when preparing their safety plans, much like airport operations. Especially how to handle large scale evacuations, having enough staff for crowd management and communications, ensuring alternate scheduling plans are in place that are solid and well thought out. And Stephen, you also mentioned the outlook that generally most of Europe can expect to see widely warmer than average temperatures. We've seen this over the last few years with record heat. Um, so is that correct? Are you pretty highly confident on expecting to see warmer than average conditions across most of Europe this summer?
Yeah, confidence is, I would say, higher than usual on that warmth, but especially across Northern Europe for the first half of summer at least, before we get into in July and August. A lot of dry weather around, having to encourage the heat, which in some ways is good news for events and festival goers, but the
Yeah.
flip side is that you get strong, sometimes dangerous heat on top of that. But it does look like most of Europe is going to have another warmer than average summer, except as we saw Eastern Europe, and especially across Western parts of the continent. It's broadly consistent across the models, aside from a few discrepancies, Northern Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, for example, and supported by the analogs as well, with El Nino and the warm Atlantic helping to drive these above average temperatures. Long-term trends also are pointing towards above average month. And what's interesting is that even our cooler alternative scenario still indicates above average temperatures, not being the cooler scenario, not as anomalous, but still above average. So I think that's quite significant and leads us towards this higher confidence. In fact, if anything, the risk is more on the warmer side compared with what we're showing at the moment. If, for example, El Nino strengthens more or does so more quickly. On the other hand, it's a lower chance that the El Nino doesn't pick up as strongly. That would mean less warmth, but that's less likely, and we certainly wouldn't be looking at a cool summer in any case. So not only are we looking warm overall, there's the underlying pattern. You can get these spikes in heat, taking temperatures to extreme levels for a few days at a time, and that can become more of a threat in places that are already dry. We've got less of the sun's energy going into drying out the ground and more into heating it. But whether we'll see the extent or frequency of 2022's summer heat waves is a bit of a matter of conjecture at the moment.
Well, heat is one of nature's greatest killers. Actually, can have more significant impacts on outdoor festivals and events, many times even greater than severe thunderstorms and heavy rain. And that's where experts like yourself, Stephen, and our risk communicator team step in and help. We can offer, weekly seasonal outlooks to help you prepare. If we see something 10, 15, 20 days out, we see a potentially very hot pattern for the time period that you're having your outdoor event, you can help mitigate those, those heat threats leading up to and then during the festival. So that's where I think, fully understanding large outdoor events operational challenges is so important, and that's where our risk communicator team steps in, provides full periods of support during the inclement, challenging weather. We have found that our customer partners value having one or two meteorologists they're working with that understand their operations, working with them through every significant weather event, and providing valued consultation really allows the event organizers, the safety managers on site, to be more prepared and respond accordingly to these weather conditions. They got a lot of other stuff going on that, weather sometimes is more of a secondary concern. And that's where we come in to help bring those actionable insights through our consultation. So it's really that holistic experience. We start with a workshop, we identify the challenges, the weather thresholds that you're looking for. If you have wind thresholds for your tents, or heat thresholds where you need to bring in cold towels or add extra water and concessions and all those key decisions that need to be made. We then provide that dedicated proactive support during inclement weather during the event days, and especially when we have weather reaching those thresholds. And then we can follow up with risk assessments and post-storm reports as needed. So I wanted to touch on our risk communicator service as helps our partners in the event space and airport operations save money, time, efforts, and allows for increased safety measures and efficiencies. So with that, I believe we're at time. So I wanted to touch base with Andrea here. Do we have any questions, other additional questions for either myself, Stephen, or Aryan at this point?
I do not see any questions at this point.
Right, sounds good. And for everybody on the call and listening to this recording after the session, feel free to reach out at any time, and we will get any additional questions answered, as soon as possible as we receive those. So great. With that, thank you everyone for listening in. I appreciate you, Stephen and Aryan, again for providing your professional, valuable input. And I hope everyone has a great day and an overall great summer. Thank you.
Thank you.